Hello, I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. I'm delighted to welcome Erica Jong back to the program. More than 40 years ago, she stunned us with her novel, Fear of Flying, which showed that women have the ability to control their own sexual destinies and sold more than 27 million copies. In her new novel, we meet Vanessa Wonderman, who is in her 60s and has some of the same needs and desires that Isadora Wing had, but she also has more daunting responsibilities, discovers the surprising limitations that come with aging. And hovering over it all is the fear of death. How will she cope? And will she be as fearless as Isadora Wing was? Fear of Dying has just been published by St. Martin's Press. Welcome.
Thank you.
So what was the impetus for the book?
God, I think it was very, very hard to write. I tried for many years to write Isadora Wing at 60, and I couldn't because Isadora Wing had so much baggage from readers, from me, and there was such a sense of expectation. So one day, I start writing in the voice of an older actress, Vanessa Wonderman. And it's funny, and it's quirky, and she's about to go on the internet in search of lovers. She goes to a site called zipless.com, which doesn't exist, of course, I invented it. And she's trying to find a lover. And she meets a selection of crazies like you wouldn't believe. So it's really, in a way, the book begins with a satire on finding love on the internet when you're 60. Then her daughter's having a baby, her parents are dying, her dog is dying, her husband nearly dies of an aneurysm of the aorta, but recovers. And she's in that place where we are when we turn 60. Friends are dying of breast cancer. Families are fading away. We want to be there for our parents as we become their parents. And I wanted very much to write a novel about what happens to women as we get older.
Mm-hmm. Now, Vanessa, who's facing all of these losses, says she hates old age. Do you think this is true of a lot of women in the age group?
I think we go through a period where we absolutely hate getting older. We hate it. We look in the mirror and see our mother's face or our father's face, and we're not happy about it. But I think when we pass through that rage, I call it age rage, we come to the other side of it and we see all the wonderful things about getting older.
What does Vanessa hope to get out of going on zipless.com?
She hopes she will find a lover who will satisfy her beyond her wildest dreams.
And she says early on, the book, that life is passion. And she tends to equate passion with sex. So is it that she's trying to get back into her life?
Yes, she's trying to get back passion. And because she's an actress and she's always been beautiful, and her looks have carried her, she cares terribly about looking older. And I am not an actress. It's true I did the vagina monologues at the West Side Arts for 3 weeks, but I am not an actor.
That qualifies you as an actress.
No, hardly. But, Eve Ensler and Shirley Knight talked me into it, and I did it, and I found it very interesting. I found waiting for the car, going to the theater, bonding with my fellow actors, going on stage, doing your thing, 8 shows a week, very tiring. And then it showed me a little bit about how hard that life is. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted to write a novel in which I used that material.
Right. So this is it.
Yeah.
It's interesting that instead of making the book about a 60-year-old Isadora Wing, you make Isadora Vanessa's best friend. So you get Isadora in there.
But Isadora, that came very, very late in about the 10th draft of the book. I thought, readers are going to want Isadora. And Isadora is older and wiser. And she is. And maybe she's even wiser than her actor friend.
Because it seems that, with all of the stuff that Vanessa is going through, and there's Isadora over in the corner acting as a sort of, I could think of sort of a one woman, I don't know if it's Greek chorus or it's an omniscient narrator saying, hey, do you really want to do that? A sort of a voice of reason.
I think of her as Jiminy Cricket.
Okay.
I think of her as, Pinocchio's Jiminy Cricket.
Okay.
Always chirping in his ear.
Okay.
That wonderful novel, Carlo Collodi's novel that became a Pinocchio cartoon by Disney. But in the novel which I read in Italian class, was so amazing because Pinocchio is always giving all kinds of problems to Geppetto, his father and
Right.
maker. And he represents the adolescent boy raging against his daddy, right? And thinking his daddy knows nothing. But Jiminy Cricket whispers in his ear, don't do that. Don't lie, your nose will grow. It's a very beautiful story.
Was Jiminy Cricket in the book?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, Jiminy Cricket was the cricket who told Pinocchio about life.
Okay. So Walt Disney didn't invent him.
No.
Okay. All right. I stand corrected. In Fear of Flying, you wrote that there were certain taboos that applied to women of Isadora's age. What are the taboos that apply to women of Vanessa's age?
Well, we're not supposed to be sexy after 60, and yet we are. We're not supposed to want to look good or flirt after 60, and yet we do. And I think the last taboo is the beauty and charm of older women. In my life, I've been blessed to know many older women who always had a boyfriend, always remarried, sometimes they had a girlfriend, but they were not done with relationships. My mentor and muse, Grace, remarried when she was 70 and about 50 pounds overweight. How? She was loving, she was sweet, she was caring, and she had a beautiful essence. And she was also a very loving and welcoming person.
There are, however, as you point out, a lot of 60-ish unattached women
Yes.
who are looking for a place to put all that sexual energy and can't find a place.
Can't find it. And many today find it with other women. And thank the goddess that we're allowed to make partnerships with people of our own gender if we love them. Thank the goddess that we're allowed to marry if that is what we wish. So I think that we've seen huge changes for older women. Huge. But the culture seems not to have caught up.
Do you think there should be safe places where 60-ish women and up can go and have their sexual needs met?
Well, that is Vanessa's fantasy. I don't know how we would create it, but Vanessa has this fantasy that she's going to start a place where older women can have fabulous sex with young studs. We don't explore that fully in the book.
You wonder why nobody has come up with that idea. It seems like might be a commercial success.
It would be, but America is a very puritanical country.
True. That's true.
It won't happen first in America, I don't think. It might happen first in other parts of the world.
Maybe France.
Maybe, or Norway, or Sweden, I don't know. But I have to say that we are very backward about sexuality in America.
Vanessa has had plastic surgery, and you write about why so many women in her age group have plastic surgery.
Well, when you're out there as a public figure, they don't want you anymore if you look old. That is true. And so I'm not surprised that Barbara Walters had this great surgery that she had many times. I'm not surprised that people like my friend Judy Collins have had surgery. They're performers. They have to be out there, and they want to look the best they can. Otherwise, they don't get booked.
Right. So it's about fear of abandonment, either by men or by,
The public.
Right, exactly.
And I think many women do. I mean, look at Jane Fonda lately. I mean, she looks phenomenal. This is a woman who has been working her little tush out for years and years and years, and it shows. She's also had surgery, but she looks beautiful.
But she looks good. She looks good. So, as you said, Vanessa meets a number of men through zipless.com, but they are really very strange.
You said it, right.
And they're so strange that she doesn't have sex with any of them. In fact, she flees from them. Do you know women who have had experiences like this, seeking partners on the internet?
I've never done it myself, but friends have told me stories. And I have to say, quite honestly, that the stories have been horrific. Also, I have an imagination. And I've had the fantasy at times of going online, and then I've thought about it, and I've thought, what on earth are you going to find?
So, your female friends who have met men, remarried in their 70s, how did they meet them?
They met them, well, the best places, I think, to meet men are at church, synagogue, or sporting events.
Okay. Well, it's never met for me. It's never worked for me in church. Maybe I should go to the synagogue.
No, I mean, because at least they're not crazy. They're I mean, maybe not. It depends on where. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of women have met men online. My daughter met her husband on JDate.
Okay.
But she was very young.
Yeah.
And that was very different. She married at 25. And she met a lovely man on JDate. But I think it's harder when you're older.
Yeah, yeah. So Isadora, as we've said, has gone from being a wild girl to being a wise woman, especially after her own husband died. Is this something that happens to a lot of women who may have been kind of wild and crazy out there in the sexual revolution, but at this age, they've mellowed? I don't know. They've been through some stuff.
We do mellow. And when we find love, it's a mellower kind of love. I'm sure of that. That I've seen again and again.
Okay. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back with more with Erica Jong after this message. Welcome back to One to One. I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking with Erica Jong. Her latest novel is Fear of Dying, and it's just been published by St. Martin's Press. As Vanessa's parents become, who were at one time a glamorous show business couple, become more and more debilitated, she talks about her fear of their dying. What is it about our parents' impending death that is so frightening? And is it about more than just losing them, the prospect of losing them?
Well, you're the next one on the cliff when your parents die, and you know that. So you can no longer deny being mortal.
Right.
And it's wonderfully liberating. When my mother was dying, and I give this experience to Vanessa, I would alternate between, my mother lived to 101. I would alternate between, oh my God, let her go. She's not happy in this life anymore, to, oh my God, never let her go. And I would, really bounce between those two feelings. And I give those feelings to Vanessa. I mean, you never want to lose your mother. She's the only mother you got.
And you write that even though you may at some point say, oh, let this be over, when your parents do die, it's something that you never really are prepared for.
Never. Absolutely never. And in my family, they often lived to be 100. and they weaken, and you see it, and you love them, and you want them to come back and be young again, and they can't. And then you see your own fate in them.
And that's really scary.
And that's really scary. And it's terrifying, really, because you are on the cliff. You are mortal.
And you're next in line.
You're next in line.
Right.
But then when you get past that, there's a wonderful freedom. When you've done the grieving and you've accepted mortality, then there's freedom beyond that. And I think the freedom is wonderful.
Vanessa has a daughter who is pregnant. And this seems to be, at least at this particular point in her daughter's life, she seems to be a bright spot in Vanessa's story.
Totally.
The suggestion is that having children, grandchildren, makes us less fearful of death.
For me, that is the case. I don't think everyone has to have children. I think some people long for them and feel they must have at least one child. There are so many children on this planet who need guidance, care, love, that I don't think everybody needs a biological child. Maybe we all need connections with children. And that can be so wonderful.
But is it that the idea that I'm leaving something behind, I'm not going to be totally gone? Is that what the children, grandchildren thing is about?
Yes, but it's a delusion, because they're really not us.
Mm-hmm.
And they have their own ideas about things. You know, totally. My eldest grandson says to me, "Grandma, I've decided I will celebrate Diwali, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, and Chinese New Year, because you get presents."
There's a smart boy. How old is he?
11.
Okay, pretty smart. Vanessa's husband, Asher, who is a billionaire, I need to say, has an aneurysm, comes very close to dying, but then recovers. But after recovery, he's impotent. Is this a situation that many married women of Vanessa's age find themselves in?
Many, many, many more than would ever tell you. And I think that it's very important to know that sex is not only the penis. And if I had one piece of advice to give to older men, it would be, you are not your penis. You are a person. You have hands and a tongue and all kinds of things to make love with. Do not think your manhood is gone because your penis is not as hard as it was when you were 20.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that's an important message.
Speaking of penises,
Yes.
Vanessa, or maybe it's Isadora, makes some interesting statements in the course of the book, and one of them comes after the circumcision of Vanessa's grandson. Mm-hmm. And she says that she feels that all of the psychological troubles of Jewish men stems from their having been circumcised.
Oh, God. This is something my daughter doesn't want me ever to talk about. But if you think about the circumcision ritual, I've always thought it was some kind of remnant of human sacrifice. And there are these older men standing over you and davening and saying, next time Boychik will take the whole thing. But I'm not supposed to say this particularly on television because, you know, it is considered a mitzvah, circumcision. And I'm such a bad Jew. I mean, that I should not opine on it.
But what is it about having gone through this that you think affects them? You seem to suggest that they, forever after, they have an obsession with that organ.
Well, you might say that's true.
Okay.
But I don't think you have to be Jewish to have an obsession.
This is true.
I think men of all ethnicities are much too obsessed with that particular organ.
Right. Vanessa talks about experiencing a loss of faith. I mean, faced with all of these other losses in her life. She talks about experiencing a loss of faith, a sense of helplessness. I believe it comes when her father is dying, when she says, "How shall I pray and to whom?" You think this is a common experience for people in that age group?
I do. I think I always wish that I believed in God more than I do. I feel that I would have comfort. I do believe in the life force. I do believe in the force that through the green fuse feeds the flower, as Dylan Thomas called it. I believe in a great life force which is given by a spiritual being. I don't think that spiritual being has a long beard. I don't think it manifests itself in a person, but it does manifest itself for me in nature, in trees, in plants.
But it's not someone who can answer prayers.
Right.
Right.
I wish I believed in God, Buddha, Hashem, whatever. I'm not sure I do.
So what is one to do? If one has no one to pray to, who can answer, who can hear or answer? A woman Vanessa goes into an AA meeting, and there's a woman speaking there, and she says, well, the only way to happiness is to surrender. So does that mean that we just need to accept whatever happens, just to go with the flow, or
I think
what?
surrender is a kind of answer to mortality. Whether you call your higher power God, or if you give it a name at all, but I think to surrender to the universe creates much more happiness and gratitude than fighting against it.
So Vanessa's husband, Asher, starts to get better, and he becomes a different man after his near-death experience. They start having sex again. It's oral sex, but it's wonderful, a wonderful experience for them. And Vanessa begins to realize that maybe what Isadora said is true, that people who are looking for these sexual thrills on the internet are really looking for, quote, slow sex in a fast world.
I think that's what we all want. I think we want connection with other human beings. We are tribal creatures, pair bonding creatures. Few of us like to be all alone. We need other people to have our back. Sometimes it's a couple, sometimes it's a tribe, but we're not solitaries. And I think that we do want connection with others. And it's not only based on what Anthony Burgess called the old in-out, which I think is a great expression.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on connection, warmth. It's all those things that we need as people.
And it seems that people realize that more as they get older.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Toward the end of the book, Vanessa and Asher decide to go to India and experience a kind of spiritual, I'll call it, rebirth there. You write, never die before going to India. What is it about India?
Well, it's the most ancient place that we still have access to. Thousands of years of civilization, many different manifestations of gods. And you can visit caves in India where all the gods are present and in effigy, really. After my father died, it happened that we went to India. And in a cave, in the cave of Elephanta, I saw these huge statues of Shiva, the king of the gods, or Vishnu, or whatever you want to call him. And first there was Shiva as a little boy. Then there was Shiva as a bridegroom with his bride. Then he was a householder with children. And in the last statue, he was a sadhu with a begging bowl. In other words, he had gone through all the stages of a man's life, from boyhood to old age. And I thought about my father, and I thought, did he go through all those stages? Yes, he did. And at the end of his life, he became very philanthropic. And we set up together the Erica Manjong writing program at Barnard College. And then I was able to let him go. I said to myself, my father was a boy, he was a bridegroom, he was a householder, as the Indians believe, raising children, and at the end of his life, he was giving back. And because of that, I felt very comforted.
In that same cave, you hear your dead mother's voice saying, "Don't be afraid, fear is a waste of life." What does she mean? And is that the main message you want people to take from the book?
Absolutely. You got it. You're a very sensitive reader, and I think that is the message. I think the message is fear is a waste of time. Life is change. We go through different stages. We change constantly, especially women. And we're open to change in a way often men are not. And so we go through these marvelous changes in our lives. One of the great things about getting older is you see how the circles get completed. You see the children that you've helped to raise, and you see what they become. You see them growing up. You see your friends' lives and how they blossom. And I think I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
It's a very, very interesting book, and I found a lot of wisdom in it from Erica Jong. So,
thank you so much.
I'm afraid we're out of time. I want to thank Erica Jong for joining me today. Fear of Dying has just been published by St. Martin's Press. For the City University of New York and 1-to-1, I'm Sheryl McCarthy. If there are any people you'd like to hear from or topics you'd like us to explore, please let us know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.